Hello and welcome to the 23rd episode of Jedi Eternal. I'm one of your hosts, Andrew Bolin, alongside the sweepy baby Blackston Taylor.
So tired. I've been waking up at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Some of you may think like that's nothing, but for me, that's a terrible, great deal of change for my life, and one that I'm not excited to make. So,
yeah. So it's been a couple weeks since we've had one of these, and we are a little off our game today.
Yeah, to say the least.
I had no idea what episode number this was. Braxton had to tell me right before I started, so...
Do you even care anymore?
But I'm excited to be back, excited to talk some Star Wars.
Absolutely.
And before we get into the news today, I do want to mention one thing. Due to some scheduling changes and things, we're going to actually change our post date for the podcast. So as you guys know, it's kind of been on Friday, like any time on Friday. You never really know what time it's going to show up, but it'll be there on Friday. We're actually going to change that starting next week to Saturday. They're going to be on Saturdays at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, and also we would like to ask you guys, just for our own informational purposes, we're kind of curious when you guys actually listen. So on typical, whenever it comes on Friday, usually between 2 and 5, usually. Like, when do you guys actually listen? Do you listen to it when it's like it first comes out, Friday evening, usually on Saturdays? Anyway, we would like to know that. So we're going to try to start doing it on Saturdays at 2 for now. But if that, if you guys give us some good feedback,
we can always change it.
So,
and we also want to say that 2 o'clock might even have to change some certain days. It just depends on, we have
our lives are very
we
busy.
have other responsibilities and things. So, unfortunately, this is not our full-time job. We wish it was, but it's not.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, we appreciate you guys hanging in there with us. We're going to try Saturdays at 2 for a while, see how it goes, and, we might change things up. With that being said, we might be recording on multiple different days. So sometimes when it comes Saturday, there might be some new news that we haven't talked about. And if so, we apologize for that, but we'll get to it the next week.
Exactly.
All right. So going into the first news story today, we actually have 4 news stories today and no rumors. Well, actually, we have one big rumor that we're going to talk about as our main topic today. So that will be saved for the end. But we're going to start with this first one that I'm super excited about. And that is the Mandalorian is publishing program revealed. And so, when the first season of Mandalorian came out, there was no publishing, there was no books, nothing, right? And one of the main reasons for that was to keep hidden the secret of Baby Yoda. I think that was kind of the biggest reason. So we didn't really get anything like that for the first season. So now they're for this, before this second season comes, they're officially having this big publishing event here. So
and then we also know that was probably one of the main reasons, is because they delayed toy launch as well, because they want to keep that a secret. So we know that's probably why. Right.
So the series is going to kick off in the fall, and actually there'll be some releases through winter and spring of next year as well.
Nice.
So, but let's just talk about what we got here. So first we have the Art of the Mandalorian season 1. And so, most things they get an art book. Those are always really cool to look at. And then there's going to be the one that I'm most excited about, the Mandalorian original novel by Adam Christopher. Now, there's no details about this yet. So before we move on to the next things, I would kind of like to just speculate about what this might be.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have any thoughts?
I think that it's possible that it does go, side by side with things that happen in season 1. But I think that, because they do that with the movies, but then again, they're full movies and they're novelizations of that movie. I would say that the Mandalorian original novel probably will be something that maybe sets up the Mandalorian a little bit, and perhaps we go a little bit into his past, or we may not get his complete origin story, but maybe something when he's younger, or maybe origin. Yeah. Who knows? What do you think?
So there's a couple different ways I could see it going. One is a prequel to the first season, so we go into his past, kind of learn more about his past. And then another thing that I think it could potentially be is bridging the gap between the first and second season.
Yeah, that could be it too.
Now I don't know, but we don't know how long I mean, the second season could technically start right after the first season ended.
Right, and
And
that's
so
kind
we
of the
don't know,
question.
right.
Yeah.
And so, but if there is let's say a year gap, which I really don't think there'll be a year gap, but let's say there is
Right.
one, then a novel could really fit in kind of like what was Mando and Baby Yoda doing during that time.
Exactly.
And just
yeah.
show like a fun little story between the two of them.
And I would say more than likely, and I could be wrong in this, but I would say that we're going to be getting what we've been getting a lot is a multi-character stage story.
Sure.
So where we're probably going to get Moff Gideon maybe somewhere in there.
Maybe, yeah. If it, yeah.
Maybe I'm not saying maybe like a whole chunk of this book. I'm just saying like it'll probably touch on him maybe a little bit.
Sure.
Touch on on Mandalorian, Baby Yoda, and probably some of these major characters. I mean, if that's what it is, if it
Right.
runs alongside the story of season 1,
Yeah.
it'll probably touch on all those characters. If it is before, probably just him.
Yeah,
or
the
close
only
to it.
thing that we know for sure is that it is not a novelization of the first season. That's the
Right.
only thing we know for sure. They said this is an original story. It is not the novelization of the season.
Right.
So, but yeah, I'm super excited about that. I can't wait to see what it is. I can't wait to get more information, and I'm sure we will get more information as time moves on. I wanted to see if I can bring up the release date for that, because December 1st. So, that being said, it'll actually be released during season 2, or maybe after season 2 is already over.
It'll be close to the end.
It'll be close to the end.
regardless
I'm
of
not sure
before or
exactly.
after.
We know none of us know for sure exactly when that will be ending.
Speculating from last year, it was December 17th that the last episode aired.
But, okay, so
So-
yeah, it'll be similar.
Yeah.
So that being said, there's definitely it could hint at some of the, or take from some of the things we learned in season 2 as well.
Right.
So it kind of has both seasons to work with there. So yeah, I'm be interested to see what it is
Yeah.
for sure.
If it does end up publishing that much later, I feel like I don't know. I mean, I guess it could try to bridge the gap between seasons 1 and 2, but for me, I think it's one of those things where you've already have season 1 for a year, right? And then now
Yeah.
it's publishing at the end of season 2. So for me, I almost feel like it does make me want to lean towards that it's a prequel. But so, and who knows?
Yeah,
know
I'm
what
with you
saying?
on that. I mean,
Who
honestly,
knows?
right now, I'm leaning towards prequel as well.
Right. Yeah.
But only time will tell.
Yeah.
So
we'll see.
moving on, we'll also be getting The Mandalorian: The Ultimate Visual Guide
That'll be cool.
by Pablo Hidalgo. He does those for all the movies. I think it's great. We're getting one for this season, or actually, I'm going to go ahead and assume it might be both seasons.
Yeah, probably.
Depending on when it's
imagine.
released. If it's released also later in the year, which I do not have a release date for that one.
Yeah.
But if it's released around the same time as the novel, then we might be able to get both seasons in there, which I think would be great. So
Yeah, it would be cool.
And then there's some kid books, The Mandalorian Allies and Enemies, The Mandalorian Storybook, and then also The Mandalorian Junior novelization. Now, I'm not sure about that one, if that is a novelization
Maybe
of a
Yoda.
season or if it is, again, going to be original story. So
Yeah, some kind of like Baby Yoda shenanigree or something.
we also know that there's going to be some comics coming from Marvel and IDW. Now, of course, they cannot reveal that because this was kind of like Del Rey and what's the other, DK were the ones that kind of talked about all of these books. So I assume Marvel will eventually release kind of what they're doing. And again, if you look at it, that's a lot of different stories that can be told in different time periods. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see where it all fits in.
Well, I I know that at this point Disney/Star Wars, they're going to try to capitalize on everything that they
Mhm.
can. So when they released this publishing schedule, I was not surprised at all. I remember some people saying like, "What? Why they're releasing books, releasing comics?" Something I'm like, yeah. I mean, it kind of caught me off guard initially because it just originated as a television show.
Yeah.
Or to some degree not television, but you know what I'm saying. But I mean, they're going to want to capitalize on
Sure,
what
yeah,
good
absolutely,
they have going on.
yeah.
Which, in funny, I was reading the article on Star Wars, and this is actually pretty cool. But it says the Mandalorian is going to get a version of the Little Golden Book. Like the old Little Golden Book for like children's stories.
Yeah.
They're going to get one for Mandalorian.
Yeah. Well,
So it's going to be great. I
the whole saga has those. So
right, but it just cracks me up.
But it is interesting to see that like what we've gotten for the movies, they're now like, hey, we're also doing this for our shows on Disney Plus,
and it shows how much how seriously they take it,
exactly,
which is a great thing.
Exactly, like they're not reserving this big publishing program only for the movies you see in theaters, but we're also getting them for Disney Plus series, and I would say for the ones in the future as well.
Exactly.
And it may, again, for any series that comes out, they may hold off till like the second season or after the first season's been released. But yeah, I'm excited that they're doing this, and I hope they just continue to do it because, again, we're not going to be getting a official Star Wars movie for a while. So
right,
if they can keep this up with releasing more novels and stuff on the Disney Plus series, I say
might as well.
You might as well. So
yeah, absolutely. So a lot of cool stuff coming in on that regard. So let's go ahead and touch on our second news story for the day, which is kind of on the same thread in terms of the Mandalorian, and that is Ludwig Göransson is to start producing music for Mandalorian Season 2 as of like right now. The article was posted on July 9th, so I guess as of yesterday, right? Because it's the 10th, yeah. So anyway, so he is going to head. So he was the guy who created the music. Pretty iconic score for season 1.
Yeah.
And so now he says that he's claiming that he's like just now starting. So that basically means that everything's wrapped up, production's done on the filming, and that things are on schedule for October. He's just doing the music now because they do all the filming and stuff first, and then the music and sound effects come in later. But what are your thoughts on that? I think that's I'm glad that they kept, first of all, the same guy. Ludwig, he did a great job. But I tell you, at first, I think me and you talked about this, but whenever the score, we was listening to it for the first time when we was watching the season 1, I remember thinking like, this isn't Star Wars music. What this isn't Star Wars music? What is this?
Right.
But as I started watching it,
it grows on
it grew on me. I was like, man, this is actually pretty good, and it really fit that like cowboy vibe that they were definitely going for, like a space cowboy type thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Listen, I couldn't get the I could not get that out of my head for so long after the Mandalorian came out.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, it is not traditional Star Wars when you hear it at all, right?
Right.
But I think that it worked because the Mandalorian, they were wanting it to be a different vibe. Now, in that, it still feels like Star Wars. I mean, the show still feels like Star Wars, but it wanted to say that it's different. Like this isn't just your average Star Wars movie or whatever, right?
Exactly.
They're going for a different vibe, and it works. He's a genius in my book.
Yeah.
Like he
defined this whole new genre in my eyes of Star Wars, of trying to get this new feel, new vibe of, because I mean, moving away from movies to these basically television series, like that was a big step for Star Wars, and there needed to be something definitive that was, it tied back in, but yet it was its own thing, and I think he really accomplished that for sure.
Now, did you watch the music video they released for it?
No, I don't think I did.
So when that news came out yesterday, alongside that they released a music video of him playing.
Oh, I'm literally looking at it right now. I haven't watched it though.
I encourage everyone to go watch that. It's good.
Nice.
But anyways, I'm excited he's coming back. Of course, I didn't expect anything different.
Right.
I will say I'm a little surprised he's just now working on the music because we're getting pretty close to the deadline here.
I think their music probably. I think it goes by a lot quicker than we think, though. You know what I'm saying? We have the rest of this month, all of August, all of September,
Right.
And then
I mean,
who knows?
And I'm sure they're used to short deadlines and stuff, but like, man, if I was having to create a whole
right.
like I'd be like, I'm gonna have to have a year.
Well, granted though, he's probably like already worked on it. It's just like he's actually like he's probably got some rough structures, and then now he's viewing all of the scenes
exactly.
and like fine tuning everything.
Right.
Probably. Who knows?
And so that basically also tells us it should be pretty much done, because if now that he's creating the music, he's got to be able to basically watch through it and set his music to it and all that. So I would say it's basically completely done. So Yeah, I
Absolutely.
am excited for that. I'm excited to see if he does any new twists to the theme or if he
Yeah.
sticks to the same
Yeah, I'm
theme or
curious
not.
as
But,
well, for sure.
moving on, we also got a little sneak peek at Thrawn Ascendancy Chaos Rising last week. That's coming out September 1st, and it's going to be a prequel to the original, or sorry, not necessarily the original, but the newest Thrawn trilogy. So this is going to be a trilogy of prequels, and I saw that they've also released a poster for it, and this will be a part of the Barnes and Noble edition of Chaos Rising, and he's actually he looks quite young in the image.
Yeah, I'm looking at it as well.
And I honestly didn't expect for it to be him at this young.
Mm-hmm.
And so
It's
very
interesting.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting.
I'm sure this is probably like some like the inductions of him into the Empire for the first time, perhaps.
Well, it definitely won't have anything to do with Empire, because he doesn't even show up until the Clone Wars. They've never
True.
even seen him before until Clone Wars, and he's already an adult at that point.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this poster. He's like wearing like a uniform and stuff like that, which is not traditional. It's not the traditional.
Right. I think
Empire or anything like that.
Yeah,
but
I think with the Ascendancy is they're kind of similar in ways as the Empire, as far as like militaristic kind of very prim and proper type stuff. So a lot of people are excited just to see like how they work and how things are there, because they're out in the unknowns, right? So like no one knows anything about them. We don't really know a whole lot about them. And so it'll be interesting to see that. But I don't know that this is really going to be for me.
Yeah.
I just don't know that I have a lot of interest in his past, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be pleasantly surprised, and the book could change my mind. I mean, I'm going to read it. But, yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I can't say too much, and I, obviously show my ignorance here, but I haven't read any of the Thrawn series yet, which, like, as you guys obviously know, I'm not the best at reading books. Not that I'm not interested in them, I just have, I usually read a lot, other things, and therefore I get kind of burnt out reading anything else. But anyway, so I do have a lot of catching up to, but I can definitely see where you're coming from in terms of him being younger, and like, why would I necessarily want to hear about his backstory? I think on my, kind of uneducated in the Thrawn, quote unquote, lineage, in my humble opinion, I think it would be the most interesting part, just from my perspective, is just to see more about the unknown regions and the species and the things of that nature.
I'm
more
with you
than
there.
Actually, Thrawn himself. But.
Exactly. I'm 100% with you. The most exciting part is definitely like maybe learning a little more about the unknown regions,
Right.
and what's out
exactly.
there, and yeah, for sure.
Which is pretty cool, because we're kind of like touching on in High Republic. We're touching on like before the unknown regions to us now is what the Outer Rim was to the High Republic. What I'm saying? Like they didn't know what was there. People are just finally settling, and trying to get out there and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that on one end we're going ahead and we're seeing more about the unknown regions, and then now we're also at the same, in a couple months we're going to be getting a book where we're seeing the Outer Rim get colonized for the first time.
Yeah,
so it's pretty cool.
And the other thing that I'm wondering about the Thrawn novel, this new one, is I'm really curious exactly what the time period is, because we don't know exactly. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we do know, but I don't know how old Thrawn is.
Yeah,
and maybe a quick look at Wikipedia would tell you his age. I don't know, it might, but I don't know what his age is, and if his age is unknown, I don't know the lifespan of his species either. So he could technically be really, really old.
Right.
Are you looking?
I'm trying to look here.
So I don't know. I mean, it could potentially be set really far back, way before the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, and that's when I said what I said earlier. I wasn't really sure how old he was going to be, and then also within that, I didn't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I personally think he's already fairly old, come the time of Rebels and such, and you know, a lot of times alien species age at a very different. Usually they age much slower from what we've seen in Star Wars.
So this is not Wikipedia. This is just some random article. So I don't know. Don't quote me on this, but they say that Thrawn is 17 years. I'm sorry, 17 years after the ending of the Clone Wars. Thrawn's age has something between 30s and early 50s. Okay, so there you go. 20 age.
But are they just is that just a guess?
I guess that's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Because if you base it off of human years, then maybe. But I don't know that we can base his aging off of that. You know, kind of like with Baby Yoda.
Exactly.
You know, Baby Yoda, you'd think he's maybe a year old, but he's 50. So.
Trying to look into it here. Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't really matter, I guess, but it's just going to be interesting to see, and we may not even necessarily find out, because if they're so disconnected from the events of in the Star Wars galaxy, we may not have anything to really figure that out.
Nothing's kind of line it up with the hash mark.
So we'll just have to see, but because what I'm getting at is it could be in another era that we're not really familiar with.
Yeah,
it would be
very
after.
true.
I'm not saying it's during High Republic. I think it's well after High Republic, but I think it could very well be before the Phantom Menace,
which we do after reading Queen's Peril. We do have that timeline kind of opened up a little bit.
Right.
So that shows that is already familiar to us.
Yeah. But I think it's going to go maybe a little bit farther out, but we'll just have to see.
Yeah,
it's kind of unclear right now. So,
all right. So let's go ahead and move on to our final news story for the week. And that we're going to end off kind of on a cool high note here with all the things that are going on in the world as we know it. A lot of bad things and whatnot. But we have some good news, and that is The Empire Strikes Back is coming to many theaters across the country during the month of July. Particularly, I believe, Regal. The Regal theaters are the ones that are really hosting this the most. But I know, like, in our local area, there's even ones like a drive-in theater that's going to have it and stuff like that. So keep your eyes on your area. But, Drew and I was talking about this. It's going to be really cool. I plan on trying to catch it at some point before they go out. But, man, to watch Empire for the first time in theaters on the big screen, that is a cool opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. It's unfortunate that it has to be during these times because I know I completely understand that some people are not going to want to go to a theater right now to be able to witness The Empire Strikes Back again. Right. But it's kind of also why they can do it. They're doing a bunch of older movies, older classics, because there's nothing new to be played. So
exactly.
But I, for one, especially with a drive-in, I think would be really cool. And I'm kind of hoping maybe I can figure out a way to go catch that here in town before. We've actually talking a little bit about maybe the two of us trying to go do that and just be able to experience it in theater, because that's something we've never been able to do.
Yeah, exactly. Some of these classic movies,
and drive-in may not be as cool as far as the original experience, but we don't have a Regal around here, I don't believe. So, do we?
Is
there one in Bedford?
Bedford, yeah. So we might have to check it out.
So Bedford might have it.
We'll see.
But yeah, so for those of you that want that experience, I mean, now's the time. Yeah. Maybe your only chance.
So make your way over to Regal and watch Star Wars.
There was going to be a 4K version that was going to be in theaters, and then they backed off of that, and I'm not entirely sure why.
I'm not either.
But you can watch it in 4K in your home. So
in your home theater. So anyway, cool stuff there.
Yeah.
So if you just wanted to make that aware to everybody, keep your eyes and ears open for that. If it's in your local area, we encourage you to check it out. So.
Go for it. So we have no rumors except for our big one that we're going to talk about at the end as our main topic. So we're going to skip ahead straight to releases. And for releases, we have one, and that is Star Wars Adventures, issue number 32.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be on Wednesday as usual. And, as I've said many times, not a super huge fan of the Adventures line, but if you are into that, go for it.
Cool. There you go. So keep your eyes and ears out for that one. So let's go ahead and we're going to get into our Q&A segment for this week. And as you guys know, we make a Facebook post every week asking you all to ask us questions, bring up topics, and more. As many of you already know, we always try to do 3 questions and topics a week. But if there are ever more, we put them into a queue. And they'll be the first to answer next week. So we actually are going to start off with one from like 2 weeks ago. Mr. Hunter Blackburn. He is
Hunter Blackburn.
He's been listening incognito mode, and he asked us a question this week. With that being said, all the questions that we had compiled the last couple of weeks up until today will actually be used up because 2 of the questions that were asked are part of our main topic.
Yeah.
So if we don't address them in the Q&A, you know why. So, but this, like I said, this week's first question comes from Hunter Blackburn, who says, would you guys ever be interested in a Star Wars quote-unquote what-if story? Or do you think it would be too confusing for the general audience? If you did want it, which story would you want? So, I think we've talked about this enough that I think everybody knows our answer. More Star Wars, the better. So if it has to come through what-if stories, I am completely fine with that. I do think that they probably won't do it simply because it would be too confusing. And I know like Disney loves to keep their timelines nice and tidy and neat, so they're probably not going to do it just for that sake. That's going to be kind of cluttering the timelines, and it's going to be much like what Star Wars was before the new canon came in when Disney took over, where there were so many legends and there were so many different what-if stories, so many things that were not quite the story, but hey, you could read about it if you wanted to type thing. I mean, right before Disney took over, there were still like books being produced where they're like, okay, we know that this is not actually part of the Star Wars canon, but we're still going to write them, and we're still going to be authorized under Lucasfilm to create it, even though it's not going to be part of the canon. So anyway, with that being said, I don't think that they would ever do it just because of that fact, and you're right, Hunter, that more than likely it's just going to be way too confusing for the average bloke that would be reading them or watching them or what have you, and they'd be like, well, I don't understand. What happened here? Why is this? They probably won't. But to answer your question on my end, at least, I would like to see it. Of course, I would like to see more stuff, of course, about, Obi-Wan. Well, I think one of my biggest ones would be, I would love to see what if Qui-Gon never died? And I think we talked about this before.
Yeah, we have.
But what if Qui-Gon didn't die? I would love to see that as a big what if story. In fact, actually, I think last podcast we answered something similar to this. But anyway, Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, well, 2 things. First of all, there already is a what if story. Now this is Legends, but if someone like you, Hunter, is interested, it's called Star Wars Infinities, and it was a Dark Horse series of comics. And it's pretty cool. I actually used to get them from the library and would just read them over and over again because it was just interesting, that it was this different, everything happens differently. And like, for example, Leia becomes a Jedi, but then she turns to the dark side, and then Luke has to fight her, and there's a lot of different changes in there.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
But yeah, so that was a comic. And I'm sure you can still pick it up, Star Wars Infinities, so if you're interested. But in current canon, had you asked me this, a couple of years ago, I would have probably said no. However, I have a slight hesitation on that now because Marvel is doing an animated What If series on Disney Plus. And
really?
so
I did not know about that.
Yeah. So they're doing a What If series. I think it's literally called What If.
Huh.
I think. I could be wrong on that. But so there's this animated series. They're bringing back most of the voice actors to come and portray their characters. But it's going to show I think each episode is for every movie, and it shows like a difference in that movie. So I think there's like 22 episodes or something. There's like a bunch.
Coming out in 2021, and it is called What If... ... question mark.
Yeah. So, anyways, because of that, I think there actually might be a chance that we could eventually get a Star Wars one, animated Star Wars one.
Well, and that's what I was going to point out is that looking at this, I hadn't even heard about this until you just said it. But looking at it, it is animated, and it's very like cell and shade animation, so it's not realistic. You know what I'm saying? So when people
Yeah.
watch it, they know that like, okay, this is an official Marvel movie. I mean, it might be an official movie, but you know what I'm saying? It's not like, oh, this is Thor.
It's
this
a
is Iron Man
fun. It's just
movie.
a fun concept for
Right.
people to. But yeah, it's separated enough that no one's going to be confused about thinking it's part of canon or whatever.
I will say this though, I do think that Marvel has a more I don't even know how to say it, and I may be incorrect in saying this, but I feel like Marvel has more room to play. You know what I'm
you're
saying?
absolutely right. No, I agree with you completely. And we see that in a lot of different ways. The fact that Marvel allows their properties to be used in tons of different ways, tons of different video games and publishers, all this stuff, right? I mean, they're used in a lot of ways. Lots of variations of the same superhero, where like,
Right.
right now in Star Wars, everything, anywhere you consume Star Wars is considered canon, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like, well,
If it's
except for maybe Fortnite. I guess they did let
they actually like a pretty decent like episode 9 teaser out like the day before it came out.
I guess Palpatine did have his big declaration on Fortnite, and it's not been seen anywhere else. So there you go, folks.
Oh,
But anyways,
what's this world coming to?
so yeah, so like I said, I would have been like, I don't know that we'll ever get that, but because of the Marvel series, I think that maybe sometime in the future it's possible. But I think they're probably gonna continue to want to grow and expand what their current canon before they do a what if series.
Oh, 110%. Yeah, they're going
Because-
to be tackling the big issues first.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. So we'll see, but I do think it is a possibility now.
Yeah, exactly. Let me look at something over here. Okay, so with that being said, we can go ahead and move on to our second question. It comes from Frey Bosarvinsky, who says, and this is going to be... What's up?
You might want to move your mic a little closer.
Oh, okay. I'm being a little quiet.
Yeah,
That's my
your mouth's like over here.
my
You're not pointing
problem
it at
is
the
that
mic.
I'm trying to like read and type things as I'm talking, and I realize like my mic is actually like three feet away.
Yeah,
So
just want to try to point that to
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Second question, like I said, it comes from Frey Bosarvinsky, who says, and this is a bigger question, so we're gonna kind of like we may not get super in depth in this, but Drew's gonna be able to talk about it a lot more than I can. But Frey says, go over the text of Rise of Skywalker. Basically, what is left out of the film. So, for example, Rey's father was a failed clone of Palpatine. Palpatine wasn't a clone body, etc., etc. So, I know one of the biggest ones that we've actually talked about on this podcast before was the interaction between Kylo Ren in the Eye of Webbish Bog, if I'm saying that correctly. I know that was a big one, and that gave us some interesting interpretations and answers, some of the more mystical side of Star Wars and stuff. So that was a big part. Of course, as you already said, Frey, Rey's father was a failed clone of Palpatine. Palpatine. Anyway, because that was a big question that we had as well. Like, whoa, when did Palpatine have time to go romancing around to have a son?
Right.
Well, come to find out, it was a clone. So that was a couple of big ones for sure. But Drew, I think you have a few points for us.
Yeah, so I just have a list here of some things that we can go over, some interesting stuff. One of the neat little things that we learn is that Palpatine, he got around using what they called an omen harness. And what that was, it's that mechanical like spine-looking thing.
Gotcha.
But it was once worn by an ancient Sith king. And if you go back into Legends, there's actually this Sith was already in Legends, Darth Omen or Omen. I'm not sure exactly how you say it. So
yeah, it's Omen probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say.
Nice and dark.
So, anyways, this Darth Omen was Legends, and they brought him back by using this Omen harness that Palpatine got to use. So that's just a neat little thing
cool.
there.
Yeah.
And then actually, another big revelation is how Palpatine survived Return of the Jedi is actually told in the novel.
Yeah, good point. His
His body wasn't recovered, and the process was imperfect, but he was telepathically teleported his mind into a clone body. So like as he never. I don't even know that he ever actually died. Like it's almost like he did it before he died, and he moved his body into. So
yeah, because I know like the book kind of outlined that he detached his spirit almost from his body and then traveled to wow, I'm blanking on the Exegol, yes. So anyway, so yeah, that is pretty interesting for sure.
Another thing is Kylo thought that in The Last Jedi, when Kylo tells Rey that her parents were nobodies, he actually thought that at the time. He did not know about Palpatine and Rey and everything.
It's not surprising, honestly, but Palpatine probably would have not, released that information to him. So.
Right. Another thing is the novel also almost tells us that what's her name? Jaina I think it's Jaina.
Yeah.
Is Lando's kid.
Yeah.
It almost tells you. It still leaves it a little bit vague, but it's pretty close to telling you. And the movie already implies it, but the novel does even more so.
Yeah.
And then let's see if there's any other really cool ones to mention. Oh, actually, one that I thought was neat is they mention Team Inferno, which is from Battlefront 2, and it talks about them showing up, as does the Fireball from Star Wars Resistance, and Tantive 4 is piloted by Nien Nunb. So, and also he dies in the novelization, so that's a bummer.
What a silence for Noger.
Oh man, so those are just some little things there. There's a bunch more, but we're not going to go into every single one of them. But those are some neat little added stuff. There's a lot of like added context to scenes and stuff that again I've said before. It's worth reading the novel just for that stuff and extended scenes if you want to say so. It's definitely worth picking up and reading if you haven't.
Right, and obviously there's not going to be like insane drops in the book that were not in the movie, clearly. Now, there was information that could have been added to the movie for more clarification that they did add to the book. Like I said, some of the clarification coming from Kylo's interaction with Ive Webbish, the fact that Palpatine's quote-unquote son was actually a failed clone.
The whole Palpatine thing should have had more detail.
Yeah. So, like I said,
their argument is, well, it didn't really need to be explained, but did it really not need to be explained?
It was the end of a saga, and Palpatine randomly come back after being quote-unquote killed in episode 6.
I think it wouldn't have hurt.
It wouldn't have hurt. No one would have been mad.
Exactly, yeah.
So anyway, like I said, at the end of the day, the stuff that's differentiating within the book to the movie is not major, but if you are interested in that, it wouldn't hurt to read it, for sure. So... All right, so our third and final question comes from Noah Aguilar.
Hey, Noah.
Noah.
Phew. Wipe the sweat off my brow. I've been so nervous. I hadn't heard from Noah in a while. I thought maybe he left us.
found a better podcast.
He found a better one. He didn't want to listen to us anymore. It makes me feel better.
Exactly. Well, it's good to hear
weight
from
off
you, buddy.
my chest. Hope you're doing well, Noah.
So anyway, he asked, let's see here. What elements are you looking forward to in the High Republic? So for me, I think we've talked about this a couple different times, just like in fleeting comments and stuff. For me, there's so many. I don't know if there's like any specific big things that I could just point off the top of my head, except that, it's going to be very interesting to see the Jedi in their prime. I do want them to deep dive into the Jedi. I think they're going to do that. I don't have any inclination that they won't, but that is something I do look forward to. One of the elements I do want to see is a deep dive into the Jedi Order at the time, how it differentiates from what we see in episodes 1, 2, and 3, et cetera, et cetera. I have a couple things I could say, but Drew, do you want to go ahead? Anything else you have?
What was the exact question again? Sorry.
What elements are you looking forward to in the High Republic?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. After the prequels, which focused on the Jedi, there seemed to be this backlash because of the negative reaction to the prequels for so long. It seemed like everything that they released was like, okay, we're gonna try to stay away from it being all about Jedi. We're gonna have the wars and all this stuff, and there might be a Jedi or two, but it's never gonna be the focus. And so I'm really, really excited to see this go all in on Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, I think me and you've talked about this at least, whether it was on the podcast or not, but like, what is Star Wars? I mean, without Jedi. I mean, Jedi are Star Wars. I mean, whether you like it or not, it's true,
Yeah, and, and I think what is Star Wars, there's a different answer for everyone.
Right, yeah.
But for us, it's Jedi.
Jedi's a very, very big part of it. Yeah,
exactly. And so I, especially since Disney has gotten it, they've been very, very careful about their use of Jedi.
Yeah, which is very bizarre, but anyway.
Yeah, it is kind of bizarre, but they've been very, very hesitant on using too much Jedi. Even in the amount of use of lightsabers in the sequel trilogy is very minimal.
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Well, I mean, the two main characters they brought in episode 7 were basically two kids that didn't even use sabers. They didn't even know how. They're the main Jedi and the main Sith to some degree, right? But didn't even know how to really use sabers.
So there's that, and so we're finally getting this High Republic that is just going full in on Jedi, and we had the Clone Wars, but again, the Clone Wars, I don't want to say didn't focus on it, because there is a lot of elements that focused on Jedi, but there's also a lot of it that it didn't, and stayed away from it, and focused more on the war aspect. Right. Where this is just going, at least I assume, is going full into Jedi lore and the way they do things, and I'm excited. I think it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
And as far as what else kind of elements I'm hoping, I hope for some mystery. I'd like there to be some mystery to it all. To the I don't want everything to be revealed in this first novel.
Right.
I kind of hope it's a slow burn. I want us to get started on this, but I'm hoping this is just the entrance to a much bigger thing.
It's the first course of a 10-course meal, baby.
Exactly. No, I really hope so. And they've talked about how this is only the first phase of the High Republic, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
We're getting this in phases, and I hope it's at least like 4 phases.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think there was a rumor that it was like 3 or 4.
So
anyway.
With that, we're getting one novel this time, one adult novel this time, but maybe next phase we get a couple, and just seeing how it grows and expands, and it being set so far back and being set completely in novels, they can do so much.
Right.
They can do so much with it if they choose to. Now we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what they end up doing, of course. And after reading the first chapter, as we did last episode, I believe that's the last episode. Time's blurring anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But well, what was I going to say now? Oh, right. Well, as you just alluded to, that there is so much different than what we already know. We're already having the base core structure of we're in this galaxy with these planets, with these type of people, but it's so different in such a different time that it's going to be a great explorative opportunity.
Yeah.
And like I said, that is an element that I'm, as you say, looking forward to, and I hope that's what they do, is that it's just a very big explorative adventure of we get to see same planets, same species, but just in a different light and in a different way, different characters, but have the same type of principles, and just see how they explore that. I think that's something I'm really looking forward to, because I love learning about Star Wars, and of course I love very much like deep diving into the universe.
Well, and like, how cool would it be if they go to a planet and meet a species for the first time that we already know about, an alien species? I mean, let's just say like Wookiees, for example. We already know Wookiees are in it but I'm just using them as an example. Like, but going somewhere like that, and
or something.
Yeah, and experiencing that for the first time and seeing that relation, something we've already know, but seeing the beginning of it.
Yeah, that would be so good, and that's what I was kind of alluding to. But yeah, so there's a lot of elements that I think that Drew and I are both really excited for.
Yeah.
And I'm just. This could be a really big deal for Star Wars, and I'm excited.
Yeah, and as you and I both have expressed, we hope that this turns into more than just a publishing thing. We hope it turns into video games, movies, TV, whatever.
Anything.
And I still am confident that this is just kind of like the testing grounds for what it can be used as, depending
Right.
on reaction and things. But
Yeah, I definitely think that's what they're waiting on. So, without any further ado, that's going to conclude our Q&A session for today. We once again thank everybody so very much for all the questions and the support and the love, guys. We appreciate you guys, and it's just fun knowing that we got some people who are interested in Star Wars listening. So,
yeah, we're at 23 episodes now, and there has only been, I think, one time where we kind of struggled to have questions, and that was kind of our own fault because we had used up a bunch the week prior, thinking
we did 12 questions.
we had like so many in in line. But yeah, it's so great that you guys just continue to support us and ask us questions, and please continue to do so. Again, you can never ask a bad question.
Yeah.
They're all good.
Absolutely.
We're happy to answer any of them.
I mean, as long as the question is about Star Wars, I'm happy to answer it.
Yeah, now if you're like, now in Iron Man 3, then we may not answer that one, but
yeah. I was like, that's not exactly what I meant by that, but yeah, that's true too. But anyway. Anyway, so without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and move into our main topic for today, for this episode. And today we're going to talk about a very big rumor that has been going on. Now, I don't mean this condescendingly, but this is something that I read it and I immediately dismissed it, thinking like, oh, nobody's going to believe this. But it has been talked about so much that man, it's just blown up on Twitter and all over Facebook and all these news sites and stuff, Reddit and stuff. I mean, everybody's talking about this rumor. And simply enough, that rumor is that the sequel trilogy is being scrapped or deleted, and that they're going to start over. In fact, we even had like a couple questions this week about that. Just kind of like, hey, can you guys talk about this? Kristen asked, what are your thoughts about the last 3 movies being rumored and not canon anymore? And then Joshin says, and he also he brings it up and also actually brings up a pretty cool like what if story almost. He says, with the rumors of the last 3 films being basically wiped, for me thinking about how they could redo the last 3, so the current trilogy is basically an alternative universe as seen through Ben's eyes as he was betrayed by Luke. Soon as Sidious is defeated by Rey, it reverts back to the betrayal scene, but when it's through Luke's eyes, basically a lot of stuff can be done there. But I was thinking of Rey going dark in this reality and Rey replacing Sidious on the throne. Could even be possible. What do you guys think? So that was also obviously a very, very cool speculation there. But overarching though, a lot of people are curious about this. So Drew, let's take a second to do a couple things here. Let's first just talk about the rumor in general.
Yeah.
And then maybe if we have some time, maybe speculate if they did do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of unpacking to do here.
So let's talk about the rumor itself first. So basically the rumor, as I already alluded to, deep diving here, is that the sequel trilogy, there was a lot of people who didn't love it. They thought that this could be better, that could be better, this could be changed, whatever. And so obviously everyone has already been saying for the longest time, oh, I think that they're going to redo it. Oh, I think they're going to, but now, everyone's been saying that, but now it's like this huge rumor. It's like a big thing. Like people are all like, hey, I'm pretty sure that there's been in talks that they're going to scrap it and make it into like, as Josh said, an alternate universe or something along those lines. So, Drew, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, I think we're kind of on the same wavelength here, but is there any credibility to this rumor?
So I want to first say I had a lot of people, even personally, contact me and ask me about this rumor.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm with you on this. I saw this online and I dismissed it like immediately.
Right.
Like I saw the headline and I just kind of moved on. I was like, that's crazy.
Right.
But people are really, this seems to just be really like going all over, right? People are talking about it. And so I want to start before I say anything else, I want to start by saying I think this is 100% fake.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do not believe this at all. There's not even an ounce of me that believes this rumor. Okay. Yeah. That's what I want to say first. But now I'm going to entertain some ideas and speculate on if this rumor was real. This rumor started because a YouTuber created a video. I think it was a video about about this, right, and about what it could mean. And he basically says that he has 2 credible sources that told him that's what Disney and Lucasfilm are doing right now, is basically preparing to destroy it and start over the sequel trilogy. I want to go ahead and go through some reasons why I just don't think there's any way this is happening. First of all, it's canon. They've made it canon, and there's so many different things connected to this now. It's not just, I mean, you have to think about it. It's not just the movies. There's all kinds of books, video games,
comics,
all kinds of things that are connected to this story. For them to get rid of the movies also gets rid of all of that stuff,
right,
as far as canon goes. And that's a lot of work trying to, like, okay, all of this stuff's canon, but anything related to sequel trilogy is now not canon.
Yeah, let me say this, and you may touch on it in a second, but I do want to bring this up. Disney doesn't go back. Disney does not make something and like, oh, oops, we made a mistake, so let's redo it. No,
except for maybe Incredible Hulk, but
even then, like, it was. They didn't like remake it though. They just like swept it under the table and didn't talk about it.
they just chose a new actor for Hulk,
right? Exactly,
and pretended like nothing ever happened.
But, yeah,
which I actually like that movie. But anyways,
yeah, it's pretty good. Anyway,
so I can't really even fathom this ever happening, and despite what I know, there's a large amount of people that do not like the sequel trilogy, but I think that it's set in stone. I really think it's set in stone. I think it is what it is. They already have said many times they're kind of staying away from movies right now. They're focusing on, or actually maybe that they've not said that, but the rumors have been saying their focus is on Disney Plus right now and doing TV series.
And even if they felt like they made a mistake, right?
Yeah.
I highly doubt that they did feel that way. But even if they did, they're not going to just go redo it. They're just going to move on to something else type thing. So here's some figures for you. The Star Wars sequel trilogy, episodes 7, 8, and 9, had a total budget of $837 million. $837 million. That's how much it cost to make those 3 movies. They're not going to redo those. Now, with that being said, they did make a $4.47 billion profit off of that. Well, that's not profit. I'm sorry. That's the box office. So they made like a 3-point-something billion profit. Stinks for them. Anyway, but
stinks for them.
but my point being is that they spent $837 million on these 3 movies. They're not going to just go back and just say, oh, well, some people didn't like them, so we're going to redo that. You know what I'm saying? And trust me, I'm not saying that condescendingly, like, oh, how dare you believe that? I'm just saying, even though maybe I might even want that, you know what I'm saying? I just don't think that it would happen just because Disney is Disney, and secondarily, Disney spent $837 million on this trilogy. That kind of investment is not going to just be like, oh, well, 51% of the people don't like it, so we're just going to have to redo it. No, they're going to just move on to the next thing, as we just said, that's going to try to make them money. So then they made Mandalorian Season 1, and it was a phenomenal hit. And then now what are they doing? An entire release schedule for books, comics, all kinds of stuff. Because that's just what they're going to do.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I think if anything, if there's anything that Lucasfilm chooses to do with the sequel trilogy is to put it on the shelf and move on.
Right, exactly.
If they truly are not a fan of it and they don't, and let's say they're like, oh, you know what, there's just too many people that don't like it. We recognize we made mistakes. Let's put it on the shelf. It happened. Let's put it on the shelf and let's move on.
Right.
And so, if that's the case, we may not see any more stories set during that period.
Mm-hmm.
We may not even get a continuation. I mean, we're going to eventually get a continuation.
Eventually, yeah.
But, we may not get any more movies with Rey and Poe, and, if they choose to truly move on from that era.
Well, and not even just Disney, but those, forgive me for not knowing their actual names, but Poe, Dameron, Finn, and Rey, they're actual people, Daisy and whoever else.
Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, and Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, whatever their names are, right? They've even claimed that we're never going to make another Star Wars movie. Like, now, do I believe that if Disney threw them the dollar signs and said, hey, come back, we're going to pay you money? No, they're not going to deny them. I highly doubt that. You have to be crazy too. but they have claimed that, though, right? So not only do I think Disney being Disney, spending that much money, are not going to come back to it, technically, even those people said that they're never going to come reprise those characters again. Now this. So I guess let me preface what I said. They said that they're not going to reprise those characters, not that they wouldn't come back to Star Wars. That's what it was. But anyway, I still don't believe that either.
I don't either. You know?
Okay, we're going to pay you $50 million to do this. Oh, I don't think I want to. Okay, I already have 3 Lamborghinis. I don't need a 4th one. So
listen, as with everything in history, it repeats itself,
right.
and
Exactly.
and so just like everything else, there will end up being a continuation of the saga, and
Right.
those characters will come back.
Right. Well, I mean, just as we went from episode 4, 5, 6, about 30 years later, we get 1, 2, and 3,
Yeah.
and then about 15 years, I don't know what off the top of my head, right? 15 years after that, we get 7, 8, 9. Well, okay, give it about 10 to 20 years from now, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
whether
we'll see
they
what happens.
singing the same tune here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
I definitely think eventually we will, but yeah, the cancellation though. If it truly went away, I would be so shocked. I don't even have words to express
Exactly.
how shocked I would be if that ever happened.
that would be such a landmark event in movie history.
But for the last couple minutes we have here,
Yeah.
let's speculate on what that would be if it were to happen.
So
And again, we don't think this is ever going to happen.
yeah, so
but
let's
if it
we
does,
don't think it's gonna happen.
actually, let me rephrase that. It could eventually happen one day, just like they reset canon. They may eventually reset canon.
Yeah,
again.
I mean, one day, but we're not saying within. I wouldn't even say within the next 20 years.
I would say that'd be very, very far down the road.
Yeah.
And maybe they reboot Star Wars and start
in general.
Yeah, in general.
But
That would be very long.
yeah, 20 plus years from
very
now.
far down the road.
20 plus years from now, they're not going to just reboot 7, 8, 9. They'd be doing the whole thing. Now, if they did that,
If they're
I won't
gonna
buy it,
ever
but
reboot
anyway.
the original trilogy, we all have to be dead and gone.
I'd have to be dead and gone. My
Or we're
kids
gonna
would have
be-
to be dead and gone.
We'll be rioting in our wheelchairs. I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah,
I do not support rioting at all. I'm just letting that know. Let me make that clear.
respectfully protesting.
Yeah, respectfully protesting in our wheelchairs. There we go.
Anyway,
Might have to break out of the nursing home to do it, but
He's like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna tell those sonnies what's wrong. Okay, anyway, so let's move on. We're getting crazy.
yeah.
here.
So
with the last few minutes, so Josh had a fantastic idea. I think I really like his idea. And
you
what
want to read
came
that
up-
again?
Yeah. So he says, let me read through my notes here. Kind of lost track here. They basically redo the last 3 movies. So the current trilogy is basically an alternate universe, as seen through Ben's eyes as he was betrayed by Luke. And soon as Sidious is defeated by Rey, it reverts back to the betrayal scene. But now it's through Luke's eyes. Basically, a lot of stuff can be done here. But I was thinking Rey could go dark in this reality, and Rey replacing Sidious on the throne.
So that's interesting.
That's
for
pretty
sure.
cool.
And I completely forgot, but part of this whole rumor, and it's kind of a shame that we're just now mentioning this part of the rumor, but part of this rumor was that the way they are doing it is through the world between worlds,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
and that however they get there, they change it. So. In that sense, it would make it an alternate timeline that could technically even be canon.
Canonically could happen, but that is why I did. Okay, this is
That's
off
why you
topic.
didn't want World Between Worlds.
This is completely off topic,
'Cause
and
it's
we're
gonna-
not going to get on it. But that's why I did not like World Between Worlds. That's why I did not want it to be a canon thing, because that opens too many possibilities for problems. Anyway,
Well, we had a conversation when that episode came out, and I was amazed by it. It was very cool. But
Yeah.
I remember us talking about it and being like, "This is going to be everyone's answer."
Scapegoat type
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, I mean,
anytime anything doesn't make sense or something
Oh,
needs to be
World Between
changed or someone
Worlds.
dies, they're going to mention the World Between Worlds for the rest of Star Wars
It's like, no
existence.
Because I remember we watched it and was like, "Oh, this is so cool," and then we kind of looked at each other like, "Oh crap."
Yeah, right. Like we saw the long-lasting effect of this story. Yeah. So, but anyways, that's what's being spread around out there. And don't get me wrong. I think that if done right, it could be pretty cool.
Sure. Yeah.
But I don't think they're doing it at all. I think this is this
No.
random guy who created this has decided to make up this story.
Make it just credible enough.
I honestly, I don't think he has sources. I'm being honest, and he can come at me if he wants. If you guys go and tell this guy, I don't remember what his name is, but if you go and tell him I said that, we can debate. We can debate on the podcast. He can come on, we'll debate.
Yeah,
but
let's do it.
I don't think he's got sources. I don't think any of this is true. It is just a rumor that has gone out of control.
Yeah.
Now, totally. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I will send him a message and apologize if that ends up being the case.
I think this was Ryan Johnson.
But anyways, so we need to wrap up, but I just want to say, like, if this were to happen, and I think for me the biggest thing would be just having a better storyline for Luke. I think that's what if the sequel trilogy were to change, I wouldn't even be against still having Kylo and Rey and those characters. I personally really like Rey and Kylo.
I like Kylo more than Rey, but
I like them both, and I think there's so much still there that they can do. For me, it's just Luke Skywalker.
Yeah,
and I think that's for most people. I think most people agree with me on the fact that if there was a change to be made, it's in Luke Skywalker and his story.
Let me just say this real quick. I should have said this earlier, but it just popped in my mind. This is why I write notes, folks, but I didn't this time. But basically, another huge reason why they wouldn't do that, Carrie Fisher couldn't be in it.
Yes.
So they're not
going to do that. So that is a very, very good answer there, because that diminishes her legacy in Star Wars if we were to get rid of those films.
Yeah.
And despite, you can say whatever you want about the sequel trilogy, but she did an incredible performance.
And it's Leia. I mean, you can't not have Leia, or not at least do her character justice. I mean,
and there's ways around that if the family were to, but they said themselves they didn't want to do any CG or all that stuff, right?
And to get her in episode 9 was a kind of a big ordeal, and they had this big ceremonial, like, hey, this is just to finish her storyline,
right?
To redig that up and to do a whole new saga with that. Now it's different.
Now again, if they're doing the world between worlds and splits into a alternate universe, and that stuff can kind of technically still remain, but listen, folks, it's not happening.
Not happening.
It's not happening. You guys, if you don't like the sequel trilogy, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to just get used to not liking it, because it's gonna be around for a long time.
Right. Yeah,
I hate to break the news to you guys.
I mean, listen, there's things we wish we could have changed as well, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. And
Luke Skywalker is dead.
No, trust me, there's things I would change in it too. Don't think I'm against you.
Yeah. Yeah, it is what it is. We have to accept that and just move on. There's still going to be amazing stories in the future.
So we're going to go ahead and end. But one thing I wanted to wrap up on a positive note is that, you know what? We may not love every movie, but Star Wars is still Star Wars. Star Wars is still the best story that's going to be ever told.
Exactly.
And there's so much more that's on the cusp of coming out.
Yeah, let's just look at the future real quick. We got the High Republic. We got multiple video games coming out soon.
Absolutely.
We got all of these Disney Plus series that potentially are coming. We know of 2, and there's rumors for a lot more of them. A big whole bunch of them.
Well,
that's
the whole
somewhere
interconnected
out there.
universe,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And so, Star Wars, I think, is in a great place. I think it's only going to get better. The sequel trilogy did not kill Star Wars.
Absolutely not.
I know that a lot of people like to use that phrase, but it did not kill Star Wars. Star Wars is strong, and it's going to continue to go on and be strong, and we're going to continue to love it, enjoy it, share it with our kids one day, share it, hopefully with our grandkids.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I love Star Wars.
I love Star Wars. All right, guys. Well, we want to thank everybody so much for your guys' continued support towards this podcast. We look forward from hearing from each and every one of you. Please continue to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter for weekly news, polls, discussions, and more. Do want to make a quick reminder that next week, so not this week, obviously, but next week we are going to be posting our podcast on Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
Here in the U.S. Also please on this one, leave some comments about when you guys typically listen, because we would like to know that information. But anyway, we look forward to hearing from you guys. Please follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. And we thank you for listening and joining us. And we hope that you join us next week for episode 24. Last but not least, may the Force be with you. And we thank you for joining the Jedi Eternal.
Bye.